Hi, this is Anita Josiah, the Cook County In-Home Support Program Coordinator. At this time, we're going to talk about person-centered delivery and application. That is, putting into practice what we've already learned about person-centered planning. So this presentation will be a guide to person-centered practices. As you proceed through this video, be sure to have a pen and some paper available. From time to time, you will see a note beginning with the words "Writing Task." At those times, please pause the video and take a few moments to reflect and make a few notes. I will be asking you to submit those notes as proof of that you have completed the training. Thank you. Much of the information in this video regarding providing person-centered services is based upon the Department of Human Services website noted here. You may access that website if you would like for further information. The Minnesota Department of Human Services and Cook County In-Home Support Program goal is for people to lead lives that are meaningful to them. To do this as best we can within the bounds of our program, we must have a person-centered support system that helps people to build or maintain relationships with their families and friends, to live as independently as possible, to engage in productive activities, for instance, in some cases, such as employment, and to participate in community life. Our support system must reflect that we understand, respect, and honor the things each person we serve thinks are important. In review, what exactly are person-centered practices? Person-centered practices are based on the fundamental principle that government and service providers must listen to people about what's important to them to create or maintain a life they enjoy in the community in which they live. Person-centered practices look at services and supports in the context of what it takes for a person to have the life they want. Person-centered practices see people as unique and whole individuals with potential and gifts to share. And person-centered practices ask what is important to each person and what contributes to each person's quality of life. So, what exactly do person-centered practices address? In a nutshell, person-centered practices address what is important to the individual and what is important for the individual. When we use a person-centered approach, the person is often able to achieve much more than those around him or her may have assumed was possible. What are some of the benefits of person-centered practices? Well, the people we serve hopefully will experience a better quality of life as a result. They grow in relationships, they may contribute to their community, make choices, and have positive control over their lives, are treated with dignity and respect. They have a valued social role, share ordinary places and activities with others, and participate in local community life. What about benefits for you as service providers? By providing services that are centered on the person, you benefit as well. You get the opportunity of witnessing the people you support achieving goals that are meaningful to them. You're able to work creatively and collaboratively with others to find successful solutions when there could be a setback or complications in the person's life or situation. You enable them to experience fewer disruptions and crises in their lives because plans are successful more often in light of potential challenges that could come up. You are the ones who help to empower the people you support, and you have the privilege of sharing the responsibility of resource allocation and decision making. So what are some ways the aspects of this goal would look through our work with Cook County In-Home Support Program? Taking a look at the first bullet, which is to build or maintain relationships with family and friends. Some things that we do or can do when creating service recipient support plans, if the person wishes, Family members and or friends may participate in that planning process, or other people that they would like to invite, support members of the community. Generally, when writing service recipient support plans, it entails the person and myself as the program coordinator. If they have a case manager, that person will also be involved. But we do encourage them to invite others if they would like to help with that planning process. When you, as a service provider, are in the home, you might, as you're going along doing your tasks, have some conversation now and then that can encourage involvement with family and friends. And it's probably not frequent or normal, but there's always a possibility a family member may be present in the home when you're there providing services. It does happen on occasion. And so interacting, respectfully with that family member and also about the family member when talking with the individual, whether while it's when they're there or at another time when the family member isn't there. So now please take a moment to pause the video and complete the writing task here. Thanks. Second bullet point is to live as independently as possible. In-home support service recipients have limitations in the areas in which you are providing assistance to them. Thus, our assistance helps to enable them to remain in their own homes. In-home support service recipients live better quality lives for longer periods of time due to continuing to be in the environments and near the people they most love. So again, please check out the writing task here. Pause the video and take a moment to answer the question. Third bullet point, engage in productive activities such as employment. By providing in-home support services, it frees up those individuals who are able to work or volunteer outside the home. Service provider assistance also frees the people we serve to participate in other meaningful activities, such as hobbies. Service providers, you may actively listen to and engage in conversation that encourages such productive activities. So take a moment again and pause the video to complete the writing task that is here. Thanks. Another bullet point, participate in community life. How do we apply that with the in-home support program? As service providers, you may be taking individuals on various errands or other events or activities in the community. For some of our service recipients, when able, even just being able to go together with you on an errand can be a huge boost to their mental health. Secondly, as appropriate, you as service providers may engage in conversation with them about community life and events as you go along your tasks for the day. So please take a moment now, again, pause the video and complete the writing task before continuing. Thanks. Let's take this a little bit deeper. What are some other things you as service providers may do to help the individuals you serve have more person-centered, more involved and meaningful lives? These are just a few thoughts. First one, respectfully make suggestions on how the service recipient may be more involved with their services. For instance, perhaps there's a task that you're doing for them that they seem really interested in or capable of on their own. Maybe they would like to work side by side with you. So you could gently ask in a respectful way if they would like to work together on that project or that task. Encourage them to talk to me as the program coordinator if there are things that they would like to add that maybe there isn't time for or something like that at this time. Secondly, be sure to keep current on the service recipient's care plan and individual abuse prevention plan. These are updated annually, and if there are significant changes, you will be notified at that time. Offer suggestions to me as the program coordinator about how a service recipient's plans might be improved. You're the one who works with them on a day-to-day basis. I'm not there. You know them so much better than I do. And inform me about any concerns that you have, any changes that you notice or are concerned about regarding their health or their attitude, let me know so we can address any of those concerns that we can within the bounds of our program or possibly make referrals to other resources. As far as applying the person-centered planning process here with the Cook County In-Home Support Program, as you learned in a previous training about the planning process, as part of that process, team meetings are held at which service recipients' preferences take priority. And we talked about that just a bit ago. The team meeting that would include the service recipient, myself as program coordinator, their case manager if they have one, and others as well if they want to invite others to that meeting. At those team meetings and throughout the year, if things come up, preferences are noted, and then you will be trained for each individual you work with on the Community Service and Support Plan Addendum, their Individual Abuse Prevention Plan, the Medication Assistance Medical Authorization Form, and the Funds Property Form, as well as other information pertinent to that individual. On occasion, you may not see the Medication Assistance Form or the Funds and Property Form if that individual does not have you doing anything in relation to those areas. We also encourage you as service providers to provide input on how best to serve the individuals we work with, to build relationships, live as independently as possible, be engaged, and participate in the community. In the next several slides, we will be reviewing forms that are used in the planning process to help ensure that we are indeed providing person-centered services for the service recipients that we work with. The first slide you see here is the In-Home Support Program Home and Community-Based Services Service Recipient Rights form. The first page here is actually what the individual will sign on an annual basis. As we go on, you will see the rest of the form which outlines the rights. So this packet of information, they receive it the first day when they enroll in services and then annually after that. And so those dates are listed, the original date and then the date each year. We generally mark this information was provided in a way that I understand. If I need the information in another format or language, it was given to me in that format or language. We do not restrict rights at all in our program, so we always mark this one no. And if an individual ever felt that their rights were being infringed upon, they do have the right to contact either of these organizations at the state of Minnesota to lodge a complaint. So they will sign and date that form. The rights are listed numerically, and I will try to skim through those. You will also have a copy of this in the back of your, or in the policy section of your service provider manual. So again, everything, this is based on Minnesota statute chapter 245D, under which our program is licensed. So when receiving services and supports, the individuals we serve have the right to take part in planning and evaluating the services that are provided, to have services and supports provided in a way that respects and considers their preferences, as we have talked about earlier in this presentation. They have the right to refuse or stop services and be informed about what would happen if they refuse or stop services. They have the right to know before they start services if the program has the skills and ability to meet their need for services and supports. To know the conditions and terms governing the provision of services, including the program's admission criteria and policies and procedures related to temporary service suspension and service termination, and these are reviewed when they start the program. To have the program help coordinate their care in a way that if they transfer to another provider, it helps to ensure continuity of care. To know what services we can provide and what the cost is, regardless of who is paying for services, and that they would be notified if there's any changes. To know before starting services if the cost will be paid by insurance, government funding, other sources. Again, to be told of any charges that they would pay. To have staff that's trained and qualified to meet their needs and support. To have their personal, financial, service, health, and medical information kept private and be notified if these records have been shared. So again, any information we collect, as well as any conversations you have with them on these topics, is confidential. They have the right to have access to their records and recorded information that the program has about them. To be free from abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation by the program or its staff. To be free from staff trying to control their behavior by physically holding them or using a restraint. We don't do anything with that kind of restrictive interventions. To receive services in a clean and safe location. Now, our licensure is also licenses programs such as day programs and group homes. And so, of course, they're in their own home. So, to be treated with courtesy and respect, to have access to and respectful treatment of their personal property, to be allowed to reasonably follow their cultural and ethnic practices and religion, to be free from prejudice and harassment regarding race, gender, age, disability, spirituality, sexual orientation, to be told about and use the program's grievance policy and procedures, including knowing how to contact persons responsible for helping to get problems cared for and fixed, and how to file social services appeals under the law. They have the right to know names, addresses, and phone numbers of the people who help them, including the ombudsman, which was listed above, and to be given information about how to file a complaint with those offices. They have the right to exercise their rights on their own or have a family member or other person help them exercise their rights, obviously without retaliation from the program. The right to give or not give written informed consent. If we ever were asked to have participants be involved in research or experimental treatment, that would never happen without their written consent. Obviously, to choose their own friends and spend time with them at home and in the community. Again, this probably would sound more appropriate when referring to like a group home. Obviously, they live in their own home, so they can choose their own friends. To have personal privacy, including the right to use a lock on the bedroom door, to take part in the activities they choose, to have access to their personal possessions at any time, including financial resources. With our program, we do not restrict rights. So this is information on how rights could be restricted and what would be entailed, but in-home support does not restrict rights. In this and the next several slides, we will be reviewing some of the documents that we use in the planning process with service recipients as we seek to provide the services that best meet their preferences and needs. This next form is the Cook County In-Home Support Program Community Service and Support Plan Addendum Form, or CSSP Addendum Form. Some individuals who have case managers have a more in-depth CSSP that they create with their case manager, and much of what we create here is based on information they've already talked with their case manager about. So you will receive portions of this form. I usually do not include the first and last page because the first page is pretty much just some informational part, and then the last page is a signature page. You will receive part or all of the pages in between, depending on how much information is specifically applicable to what you are doing with your service recipient. So on this form, on the cover page, the person's name, it will have the date that the form was developed. It is created at the time of enrollment and then redeveloped every year after that. It will run for 1 year from the month that it is developed until that same month the following year. Generally, the person completing the form would be myself, so It would have Anita Josiah, program coordinator. If they have a legal representative, that person's name would be here. Case manager, if they have one, other support team members or others as well that they might want to participate in this team meeting when this is developed. So the original form is developed within 15 calendar days of service initiation, or when they start the program. Within 60 days of service initiation, I will contact the individual to check in and see how it's going, and we will discuss how, when, and by whom services are provided, and the plan that we created, is it still accurate? Does it need any changing? And then at least every 6 months also, I check in with the person to just clarify their preferences, their daily needs, whether they feel respected for who they are, some of those things. And then once a year, again, this form, the more formal meeting in person, although during COVID-19 it's been remote, but we try to meet as a team and create a new document. So on the next page is where, this is the main page that you will pay close attention to. It gives the details when you're in their home providing services outside of the individual abuse prevention plan, of course. This one is extremely important. Where and how services will be provided. So generally it's going to say in their home and possibly in the community if they participate in errands or other activities that you take them to. Frequency of services, how often you will be serving them in their home, and then the payment method, whether it's sliding fee scale, a particular waiver, or private pay. The scope of services to be provided is going to detail, in most cases, we are providing homemaking services, for instance, so it will go into as much detail as possible about what they want done in their home. You know, do they want you to vacuum behind the furniture? Do they want dusting or not want dusting? Those kind of things are delineated here. Their desired outcomes and supports necessary to accomplish the outcomes. So if their main outcome is a thoroughly clean home, they want someone who is detail oriented. It depends on the individual what might be in that box. Positive support strategies or preferences. Here's where we kind of outline what we've been talking about. What's important to and for the service recipient. Maybe they only prefer working with people of a certain kind of personality, or they want their windows washed every 6 months. You know, certain more detailed information about preferences that are important to them. And maybe even not just specifically about the services we provide, but in life, so that we can get to know them a little better and understand them. And that's especially here where what people appreciate about the service recipient. We're going to talk about their personality a little bit. Excuse me. So that when you first start to get to know them, you know a little bit about them. Is the current service setting the most integrated setting available and appropriate for the person? Well, in our case, yes, they are in their own home. They're not in an institution, and so obviously this is going to be, in most cases at least, the best integrated setting for them. Describe the opportunities to develop and maintain essential and life-enriching skills, abilities, strengths, interests, and preferences. Here we might talk a little bit about some skills they have, some hobbies, clubs they like to go to, and that's more maybe under community access. Ways that they're involved in their community, that they're involved in life. Describe opportunities to develop and strengthen personal relationships with other persons of the service provider's choice in the community. You know what? I'm going to correct this. This should be service recipient's choice. This is, by the way, a fairly recently developed version of the CSSP Addendum. And so some of the versions that you've looked at recently might not be this detailed, but per our licensure, we had to add more detail. So describe how services must be coordinated across other 245D licensed providers and members of the support team or expanded support team to ensure continuity of care and coordination of services. We might say something here about coordinating with their case manager, or maybe we share services with care partners or something like that. Summarize the decision and discussion on how technology might be used to meet the service recipients' desired outcomes, and summarize any need for further research. So maybe the person's hearing impaired and they have a special telephone, or because they are very vulnerable, they have a personal emergency response system, meaning a pendant or a wristband that they can push when there's an emergency. So things like that, technology might be listed there. Can this person use dangerous items or equipment? In general, in their own home, this is not a concern. But we might list something here, for instance, maybe someone who's prone to falling. A ladder might be considered a dangerous item because of their potential for falling. So, and then on a continuous basis, does the person require the use of permitted actions and procedures that include contact or instructional techniques as outlined in the emergency use of manual restraints policy? In general, this does not apply. We do not use emergency use of manual restraints beyond what is in the general policy. And so there's not also a need for a transition plan. On the next page, you may or may not get a copy of this if there's anything specified on it, whether there are any additional requirements that they want for you as the person serving them to have, whether they want someone who is trained in CPR, in which case we would coordinate that. But in general, most of our service recipients are very content with the training and the backgrounds that you have as part of our program. This section is for whether there need to be any reports or notifications to people on their team or their case manager or that kind of thing. And then the last page is the signature page for the people who are involved in the planning session. We all sign off. At the bottom, I make notations of when services started, again, when this was originally developed, as well as annually that particular year, when the original 60-day review was completed, and then the current or next 6-month review. So that is the CSSP addendum form. Here you see the In-Home Support Program Individual Abuse Prevention Plan, another item that is used annually with individuals. It has 4 pages, and generally the copy that you will receive will be of the 2 inside pages. The first and last page again are instructions and then a signature page. Under our licensure, the development and review of a plan is required first at enrollment and then annually thereafter as part of their service plan. And I will let you have copies of these in your service provider manual, so you can read these instructions to more detail if you would like to do that. The plan contents, it makes a statement of measures that will be taken to minimize the risk of abuse to the vulnerable adult. And again, it's required by our licensure. And if the individual that we're serving has a history of violent crime or an act of physical aggression toward others, that also, if we're aware of it, needs to be addressed in the plan and how we're going to minimize that risk. So within the plan, you will find instructions for each area. There are 5 areas. We would assess whether the person is susceptible to abuse by others and their risk of abusing other vulnerable people. And if they're susceptible, we would mark the box yes, and then give brief details on this page, go into further detail on the next page. So there are 4 areas of abuse that we are concerned about. If the person has been or is vulnerable to sexual abuse, we will review the bullet points and any other concerns in that area and mark that on this form. Same with physical abuse, self-abuse, financial exploitation. So sexual abuse would potentially be a lack of understanding of sexuality, that the person might be likely to seek or cooperate in an abusive situation, their own inability to be assertive in a potential situation, or other. Sometimes under other we might say that they've had a past history, but that it's no longer an issue. Sometimes that's what they will want us to know. Physical abuse could entail their inability to identify potentially dangerous situations, lack of community orientation skills, that they interact inappropriately with others, maybe difficulty or inability to deal with verbally or physically aggressive persons, or the individual is verbally or physically abusive to others, or if they have a victim history in the past. Again, if there are no issues, we would just mark no and move on. Self-abuse may include things such as dressing inappropriately, refusing to eat, or neglecting these areas as well. Maybe not purposely refusing, but neglecting to eat, perhaps because of depression or something like that. Inability to care for their self-help needs, lack of self-preservation skills or keeping themselves safe, engaging in self-injurious behaviors, neglecting or refusing to take medications. Again, is a box other under each section in case there's something else that comes out related to that area. Financial exploitation. Are they unable to handle financial matters? And in some instances, it might not be specifically money, but people have had medications stolen from them. And so that's a concern and that's a vulnerability as well. And then under the other non-abuse related vulnerabilities, you might see something more related to their physical health issue, such as potential for falls, or that their diabetes causes low blood sugar issues, those kind of things. And then on the next page, we outline how those things kind of play out in these first areas, and then specific measures that we may take within the scope of our program. So you may have seen things like environment for risks. If they have potential for falling, obviously we want to be conscious of, for instance, not keeping pathways clear, or if they go on errands with us, making sure that in some instances that we're taking their arm to give them support walking, or that they bring their cane, or don't walk on slippery ice. There's a lot of different ways this can play out. Behaviors of susceptibility that we might look for. If they're susceptible to low blood sugar, maybe they become lethargic, and questions maybe that we would ask the person to help ensure that they're doing okay. So just some measures that we take along the area of whatever their vulnerability is and how we can be conscious and aware and assist to the extent that we can when we're in their home. If it seems like there's a referral that's needed that's outside of the scope of our program and they have a case manager, we would inform the case manager of those concerns and the case manager would follow up. If there's no case manager, we do the best that we can to connect them to other resources. Here's the question, as we kind of alluded to earlier: is the program aware of this person committing a violent crime or act of physical aggression toward others? If they are, then we would specify measures that would be taken to minimize that risk. This is, again, reviewed on an annual basis, and signatures on the last page, the people that are involved in the planning session. So that is the IAPP, or Individual Abuse Prevention Plan. The document you see here is the Cook County In-Home Support Program Abuse Prevention Plan. As discussed earlier, each individual has an individual abuse prevention plan. This is more the overall umbrella of how we as a program minimize risk of abuse. So at orientation, service recipients are introduced to the program abuse prevention plan. This is evaluated annually. A copy is posted in a prominent place in the building. And if the assessment indicates that the vulnerable adult does not need specific risk reduction measures in addition to those identified in this abuse prevention plan, that has to be documented on their individual abuse prevention plan. And again, in addition to this program abuse prevention plan, each individual has an individual abuse prevention plan as well to help ensure that they are receiving appropriate services and kept safe. In the plan, you will see an area of risk and then specific measures that are taken to minimize that risk. An area of risk, what measures are taken to minimize that risk. So the first risk is age range of the persons in the program that we serve. And we serve individuals with disabilities from age 18 and up, and any individual over 65, whether or not they have a disability. As far as measures to minimize risk of abuse to people as related to age, individuals who require supports related to their disability or advanced age will have this identified within their individual abuse prevention plan. As for gender, we serve service recipients of any gender, and each year at orientation as well as annually, you as service providers are trained in person-centered planning and service delivery that is inclusive and respective of all gender types. The range of mental functioning, as you may know from the people that you serve, we serve quite a range of individuals. Can be anyone from developmental disabilities and or mental illness to people who have totally normal mental functioning. So as far as measures to minimize the risk in the area of mental functioning, we do serve people in their own homes. Thus, the individuals are served with a staff ratio of 1:1. Service providers receive annual training in compliance with Minnesota Statute 245D, our licensure, and we will, the background of service providers is reviewed, as you know, for any previous incidents of abuse or neglect when you go through the background study and fingerprinting when you're hired to work with the service recipients. And then we do train you on each individual's needs as identified in their individual abuse prevention plan. As far as physical and emotional health, again, it can be a wide range. We may have people who need ambulatory assistance due to need for walkers or canes or maintaining clear pathways. Some have reduced vision or hearing. Some have a primary or secondary diagnosis of mental illness. Measures to minimize that risk, again, we're going to be alluding a lot to the individual abuse prevention plan because each person is unique. And so that's where these things are being addressed. And then again, that you as service providers will be trained on each individual's specific needs, maybe things like special diets, recognizing specific medical needs, assisting with emergencies that might arise for the individual, and any other disruptive situations whereby people are unable to protect themselves. As far as adaptive or maladaptive behaviors, we do not provide behavioral interventions for people with the more serious maladaptive behaviors. So that does not apply. We had any specialized needs, again, those are going to be addressed in the person's plan. It can be anything from food preparation, being attentive to any cognitive changes the person may have, assisting them with their wheelchair, walker, or cane. Again, it's going to be addressed in their plan, and both probably their individual abuse prevention plan and or the CSSP addendum. And you would provide assistance according to each individual's plan. Specific training, obviously, Service providers have a lot of training. We're trained on the abuse prevention plan and that of the individual as well as in general and their CSSP addendum. Specific measures to minimize risk. We ensure that you as service providers receive the training that is required by the state. And our goal, as much as we can, is to match you with service recipients who have similar temperament and interests, and that you have the training required to meet their specific needs. Thus far, as long as the program has existed, there have never been any substantiated incidents of abuse or neglect. So, and again, you all are trained on vulnerable adult requirements, including intervention and reporting of suspected maltreatment. Here you see what is called the In-Home Support Program Funds and Property Authorization Form. We use this form in our program primarily for when running errands on service recipients' behalf. So you will see each year, again, this is renewed, the service recipient's name is at the top, and then they will designate how you will be paying for the items that you are running errands for them on. Are they giving you cash, a check? What else? Is it a debit card, an EBT card, credit card? Maybe they have an account at a store. That will be designated on this form, as well as any limitation on the amount of funds that you can take with you or spend. Some program requirements. Whenever we're assisting individuals with utilizing their funds or property, we must ensure that the individual retains the use and availability of their personal funds and property. Again, we do not have restrictions in our program since they are in their own home. So the funds, the property are theirs. That we must also ensure that you as a service provider provide a receipt for the purchase immediately upon return from running the errand on their behalf, and any change or again returning their debit card or credit card when you return from running the errand. Some program restrictions that we as employees or independent contractors, as you are, come under. We cannot borrow money from the person or loan money to the person. We cannot purchase personal items from them or sell merchandise or personal services to them. We cannot require them to purchase items for which the program is eligible for reimbursement or use their funds to purchase items for which the program already receives public or private payments. On the second and last page, it talks first about data privacy. This is in reference in part both to this form as well as the funds exchanged form that you would take with you and that you and they would initial upon return of their receipt and their change or card. And as I tell them, we have their paperwork is in the courthouse, which is locked during non-business hours. My office is in a locked area of public health and human services that is locked 24/7. My office is locked when I'm not working, and they are in a file cabinet that also is locked. So everything is very secure. If they would like to receive copies of those funds exchanged forms, they can designate how often they would like to receive those forms. They would initial here. If they have a case manager, that person would also initial, and then specify how frequently they want to receive copies, whether it be monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, or in many cases, our service recipients really don't care to get copies of those forms, and so they'll say something like not wanted or not needed. And then there is the signature page as well. So that is the funds and property form. Here you see the Cook County In-Home Support Program Medication Assistance and Emergency Medical Authorization Form. This form has two parts to it: the medication assistance authorization portion and the medical emergency authorization portion. We have limited responsibilities as far as assisting people with medications. So here is the list of things that we can do. As service providers, you can open the container of a previously set up medications and empty the container into the service recipient's hand. So this might be, for instance, a container that says Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You pop open Wednesday and pour it in their hand. Or it's a bubble pack and you just pop the pill into their hand. We can open the medication in its original container and hand the container to the individual so that they can independently disperse the amount of medication that is prescribed or recommended. We can bring liquids or food to accompany their medications. We can remind them to regularly take medications or perform scheduled treatments or exercises. And we can assist with medication refills, new prescriptions, over-the-counter medications, which can include picking up medications on the service recipient's behalf and or transporting that person to the pharmacy or the store to pick up their medications. In some instances, service recipients are totally self-independent. In this case, and I may cross off this entire section and you don't even see this form. It also is the medical emergency authorization form. So this authorizes us to act in an emergency if there is an emergency. If it's a case where the person has a legal representative who signs for them or must make that decision, the second box may also be checked. And then again signed by the people who are involved in developing the plan. Here you see the Cook County In-Home Support Program Emergency Use of Manual Restraints Not Allowed policy. The policy of our program as a Department of Human Services licensed provider is to promote the rights of persons served by the program and to protect their health and safety during potential emergency use of manual restraints. So what is that? Emergency use of manual restraint means using a manual restraint, or in other words, a hands-on method of control when a person poses an imminent risk of physical harm to self or others, and it's the least restrictive intervention that would achieve safety. Property damage, verbal aggression, or a person's refusal to receive or participate in treatment or programming on their own do not constitute an emergency. So positive support strategies and techniques that we can use. First of all, always follow the individual strategies in the person's plans. You might, in certain situations, help to shift the focus by verbally redirecting the person to a desired alternative activity. For instance, perhaps you are working side by side on a project and the person starts to become agitated because who knows, maybe they're having a hard time doing it. You might suggest, you know what, let's go over here and do this for a while and come back to this project later. And then when things have calmed down, go back and try it again. Model desired behavior. Reinforce appropriate behavior. Offer choices, including activities that are relaxing and enjoyable to the person. Use positive verbal guidance and feedback. Actively listen to a person and validate their feelings. In some instances, again, maybe the client you're working with just seems frustrated or agitated or whatever, but it might help to create a calmer environment. Maybe the TV is too loud or the music is blaring. Suggest, what if we just turn down the music a bit or turn the lights down, or other factors that might make a difference. Speak calmly and with reassuring words. Consider your volume, tone, and nonverbal communication. You might simplify a task or routine or discontinue it until the person is calm and agrees to participate. And always respect the person's need for physical space and or privacy. Maybe they want to go spend some time in their bedroom while you're cleaning the kitchen or something. It's okay. Respect and honor that. So When there are emergency use of manual restraints in place, a positive support transition plan would be developed in order to help wean the person down off of those restrictions. Again, for the most part, we are not going to see this with our program. It would be very unusual. Permitted use, permitted actions and procedures. These are some things we can do. Physical contact or instructional technique, again, must be the least restrictive alternative possible to meet the needs of the person, and may be used to calm or comfort the person by holding that person with no resistance from the person. So if the person is, maybe they just got a phone call that was really bad news and they're very upset, are they somebody that maybe you could give a gentle hug to very briefly? Protect the person known to be at risk of injury due to frequent falls as a result of a medical condition. You work with someone who has potential for falling, and you're nearby when you see that they're tripping and they're going to fall. You don't want to try to stop the fall and potentially injure yourself, but maybe you can help to cushion that fall going down so as to minimize any injury to the person. Facilitate the person's completion of a task or response when that person does not resist or the person's resistance is minimal in intensity and duration. Maybe hand over hand for a moment if you're helping them with something. Block or redirect a person's limbs or body without holding the person or limiting the person's movement to interrupt the person's behavior that may result in injury to self or others with less than 60 seconds of physical contact. So maybe that person is striking out and going to hit you, and you just put your arms up in the way so that you don't get that slug in the face. I mean, this has never happened. I don't think it would happen with our clients, but this is the example I give them, that you're not going to hit them back. Redirect a person's behavior when the behavior does not pose a serious threat to the person or others, and the behavior is effectively redirected with less than 60 seconds of physical contact by staff. So in any of these situations, if you are touching the person, do so for less than 60 seconds. Restraint may be used as an intervention procedure to allow a licensed healthcare professional or to safely conduct a medical exam or to provide medical treatment. Again, this is going to be pretty rare, but maybe in an emergency situation, you might help hold the person while being evaluated by healthcare professionals. Follow their directions. Assist in the safe evacuation or redirection of a person in the event of an emergency and the person is at imminent risk of harm. You might need to take them by the arm, for instance. Again, we don't have people with physical disabilities in such a manner that we would be positioning them physically. Use of adaptive aids or equipment, orthotic devices, or other medical equipment ordered by a licensed healthcare professional to treat a diagnosed medical condition do not in and of themselves constitute the use of mechanical restraint. Some prohibited procedures: we are not allowed to use chemical restraints, such as medications to medicate a person to restrain them. Mechanical restraint, some kind of a device. Manual restraint, as we've primarily been discussing. We cannot require timeout or seclusion or any aversive or deprivation procedure. Even in emergencies, manual restraints are not allowed. Again, in an emergency, continue to utilize the positive support strategies that we talked about earlier. Continue to follow the individual strategies in their plans. Ask them maybe if they would like to move to another area where they feel safer or calmer, if they seem uncomfortable. Say you're at a shelter because of evacuation. Help ensure that they feel safe and comfortable wherever they are. Perhaps remove objects from their immediate environment if it could cause harm to themselves or others. Call 911 or law enforcement if the alternative measures are ineffective to achieve safety for the person. And while waiting for law enforcement to arrive, continue to offer the alternative measures that we have discussed, so that there's hopefully no risk of harm to the person or others. So we do not allow alternative safety procedure with a person when it's been deemed by their physician or mental health provider to be medically or psychologically contraindicated for that person. If for some reason a mechanical or manual restraint was required, that would be reported to me right away. So that is the emergency use of manual restraints policy. On any of these policies, be sure to contact me and let me know if you have any questions. And you should have copies of all of these in your service provider manual. In summary, person-centered planning, delivery, and application address what is important to and what is important for the individual served to create or maintain a life they enjoy in their community. You as service providers should be, and I know that you are, cognizant of ways you may assist or encourage the people you work with to both live as independently as possible, engage in productive activities, and also to participate in community life. Team meetings and documentation help to ensure that individuals' needs are being met. Thank you all so much for all you do every day to help our service recipients have better lives.